Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let's continue on with the Prophet. Then a mason came forth and said, "Speak to us of houses." And he answered and said, "Build of your imaginings a bower in the wilderness ere you build a house within the city walls. For even as you have homecomings in your twilight, so has the wanderer in you, the ever distant and alone. Your house is your larger body. It grows in the sun and sleeps in the stillness of the night, and it is not dreamless. Does not your house dream, and dreaming leave the city for grove or hilltop? Would that I could gather your houses into my hand, and like a sower scatter them in forest and meadow. Would the valleys were your streets, and the green paths your alleys, that you might seek one another through vineyards, and come with the fragrance of the earth in your garments. But these things are not yet to be. In their fear your forefathers gathered you too near together, and that fear shall endure a little longer. A little longer shall your city walls separate your hearths from your fields? And tell me, people of Orphalese, what have you in these houses? And what is it you guard with fastened doors? Have you peace, the quiet urge that reveals your power? Have you remembrance, the glimmering arches that span the summits of the mind? Have you beauty that leads the heart from things fashioned of wood and stone to the holy mountain? Tell me, have you these in your houses? Or have you only comfort, and the lust for comfort, that stealthy thing that enters the house a guest, and then becomes a host, and then a master? Wow, let's go back here. In their fear your forefathers gathered you too near together, and that fear shall endure a little longer. A little longer shall your city walls separate your hearths from your fields. So the idea that people tend to keep to themselves, and every nation, they have a familiarity with each other as people, as ethnicities, as their own little nation and their own little community, and they keep together. And Khalil Gibran is saying that the Prophet of God is reminding people that even though your people live together closely in these communities, that really your attachment or your connection to the whole earth is something to realize on a deeper level. And that's why he says, I wish I could scatter you in the forest. I wish I can scatter you all in the meadows. I wish I can scatter you all around, so you can learn that your home is actually all of earth, and that the people around earth are actually all your community. And that's the problem, and that's why I am a global citizen. I do not see it as actually a negative thing, as some people tend to think. They tend to think that becoming a global citizen means that you are in this one world, new world order. No, in my mind, I am just somebody that doesn't only think of myself as an American, but I actually think of myself as connected to other people around the world, and that they are my brothers and they are my sisters. And that my community is Earth, and it's not really just America. I don't have this American nationalistic approach to life, because I do feel like a global citizen, and I have a strong spiritual side of myself that understands this and has this unity consciousness with all people on Earth, no matter, who they are and what they think of me. I have that towards them. And I believe that that's what we're taught, is that we're taught to have fear of others and to live amongst our own little people. And the Quran kind of shows us all the time the idea that, there's no need to fear. The only thing to fear is really the that you are displeasing to Allah. You are displeasing to God. Because when you are displeasing to God, you are not in service of God. And if you're not in service of God, you're not in service of others. And you are actually not fulfilling your soul's destiny and your purpose. To come back to God and find your way back and to connect to all beings around you. And so it is fear that keeps us in this nationalistic mindset that, we're only about ourselves and we should fear the outsiders, and I am completely against that. And as you can see, Khalil Gibran also was, because when you reach a place in your spiritual understanding, you only fear your soul to do the wrong thing. And that anybody can take my life, or they can, do what they want to me, but my spirit is untouched. It belongs to God. So wherever I go after this earth, it goes right back to God. And I know this. And that's why I don't have any fear of anything like, outside of God being displeased with the soul that I am. And I think that a nationalistic approach to your own continent, your own nation, your own country, really just shows fear of the outside. And here Khalil Gibran saying, what is it that you fear? Why do you fasten your doors? And when you lust for this comfort, when you lust to close your borders, that becomes a master of you. Is that lust for comfort becomes your master, and you become slave to that desire, and it doesn't keep your mind open about others, and it keeps you in this state of fear. And that's really important. That's what he's saying right here. Or have you only comfort and the lust for comfort, that stealthy thing that enters the house a guest and then becomes a host and then a master? Aye, and it becomes a tamer, and with hook and scourge makes puppets of your larger desires. So your desire to connect with the all, connect with God, your deeper desires as humans actually might be oppressed by the deeper desire of fear and the deeper desire of to keep yourself within your own community, in your own home. And so you have to be mindful of that. Those people that kind of hold these nationalistic approaches towards others that are different from them, they are being a slave to that part that's trying to hold on to that comfort, instead of taking a leap of faith, trusting God, and believing that when you open yourself up and to experience and to expand your own mind, that you are then fulfilling your soul's purpose to become free and expand outward, instead of keeping, to yourself in fear, and become a puppet to the puppet master, which is fear and these desires to keep you comfortable. Though its hands are silken, its heart is of iron. This is talking about comfort. It lulls you to sleep only to stand by your bed and jeer at the dignity of the flesh. It makes mock of your sound senses and lays them in thistledown like fragile vessels. Verily, the lust for comfort murders the passion of the soul, and then walks grinning in the funeral. I mean, this is kind of like a dark idea of the idea of comfort. Comfort can feel great, but when it is done out of fear, that's when it's controlling you. But you, children of space, you restless in rest, you shall not be trapped nor tamed. And it's true. I mean, we are children of space. We are only on this ball of earth, but we really are part of this space, part of this universe, part of this dimension that we're in. And and it's important to understand that we are not our, we're not just our home, and earth is not our only home, but we are actually part of this larger picture of what's around us. Your house shall be not an anchor, but a mast. It shall not be a glistening film that covers a wound, but an eyelid that guards the eye. You shall not fold your wings that you may pass through doors, nor bend your heads that they strike not against a ceiling, nor fear to breathe, lest walls should crack and fall down. You shall not dwell in tombs made by the dead for the living. And though of magnificence and splendor, your house shall not hold your secret, nor shelter your longing. For that which is boundless in you abides in the mansion of the sky, whose door is the morning mist, and whose windows are the songs and the silences of night. And the weaver said, Speak to us of clothes. And he answered, Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and the wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of life is in the wind. So here Khalil Gibran is actually saying, this is very true, that it's interesting that some Islamic leaders would say that the interpretation in the Quran, when it talks about, hide your beauty, that it's talking about a whole burqa, your whole head to toe. And here is the opposite. And the idea that's here, it's saying that it's actually, it's that becomes when you dress to conceal yourself or to think that you're concealing your beauty, because let's put it this way, beauty can also be your mind. So when a woman speaks, even behind a burqa, she's still going to make some men fall in love with her if her mind is beautiful and if her soul is beautiful. So clothes don't conceal all of your beauty at all. They only conceal your parts of you that have become known in society, that ever since Adam and Eve became naked and they realized they were naked, your clothes hide that part of you, and they suggest a certain type of modesty that you have, so you're not running around naked. But Khalil Gibran is saying that can easily become a harness and a chain, that you shouldn't feel trapped within these clothes and shouldn't feel that only your physical outside is your beauty. Some of you say, It is the north wind who has woven the clothes we wear. And I say, Aye, it was the north wind, but shame was his loom, and the softening of the sinews was his thread. And when his work was done, he laughed in the forest. Forget not that modesty is for a shield against the eye of the unclean. That's important. Forget not that modesty is for a shield against the eye of the unclean. That is really amazing, because it shows that your modesty that you have is a shield against the eye of the unclean, against somebody that might look at you in a perverted way, in an unclean way. Your modesty is a shield, but not to take it to the extreme and make it become a harness and a chain that really grounds you to the material idea of outside beauty. And that's where you need to find that middle ground, where you are, you're modest in your dress, you're not letting it all hang out, but you are also not chained, and you are not trapped within, your clothes that you wear. And when the unclean shall be no more, what were modesty but a fetter and a fouling of the mind? And forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet. and the winds long to play with your hair. And that's why I don't wear a veil. You know, I realize that the veil is a dress from a long time ago. It was the way that they dressed in that time and in that region to protect themselves from the sun. But here Khalil Gibran is saying that sometimes it's important to feel connected to nature and to feel that wind through your hair and that sun on your face. And that if you only let that happen within your home, you are not connecting yourself to nature, which is connected and is from Allah. So to trap yourself within modesty or within clothing is a problem. It's an extreme. And it's not allowing you to have the full experience of life. And you can do it in a way where you are not tempted to sin. You can do it in a way where you're not tempted to indulge in adultery. You can be connected to nature and allow the wind to play through your hair and allow the sun on your face and the sun on your arms. You can allow yourself to feel nature. And your heart is pure, and Allah knows that you are not trying to make someone think unclean thoughts, that you are just enjoying the warmth of the sun, you're enjoying the wind playing through your hair. And Khalil Gibran understood this like I do. And a merchant said, "Speak to us of buying and selling." And he answered and said, "To you the earth yields her fruit, and you shall not want if you but know how to fill your hands. It is in exchanging the gifts of the earth that you shall find abundance and be satisfied. Yet unless the exchange be in love and kindly justice, it will but lead some to greed and others to hunger. When in the marketplace your toilers are of the sea and fields, and vineyards meet the weavers and the potters and the gatherers of spices, invoke then the master spirit of the earth, to come into your midst and sanctify the scales and the reckoning that weighs value against value. And suffer not the barren-handed to take part in your transactions, who would sell their words for your labor. To such men you should say, Come with us to the field, or go with our brothers to the sea, and cast your net, for the land and the sea shall be bountiful to you even as to us. And if there come the singers and the dancers and the flute players, buy of their gifts also, for they too are gatherers of fruit, and frankincense, and that which they bring, though fashioned of dreams, is raiment of food, and food for your soul. And before you leave the marketplace, see that no one has gone his way with empty hands. For the master spirit of the earth shall not sleep peacefully upon the wind till the needs of the least of you are satisfied. So this is so important to understand that everything that we buy and sell, and even today, is actually from earth. Even things that are man-made and synthetic materials, they are compositions of something from the earth. And to understand and to hold this type of gratitude when you sell and when you buy, and to also weigh value against value, not to rip off your fellow mankind, and to actually give value to what is valuable, and to be righteous and to be fair about the prices that you create, so that everybody can have a chance to take part in the market and to have what the earth can supply for free, basically. All right, one more. Then one of the judges of the city stood forth and said, Speak to us of crime and punishment. And he answered, saying, It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind. that you alone and unguarded commit a wrong unto others and therefore unto yourself. And for that wrong committed must you knock and wait a while unheeded at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean is your God's self, it remains forever undefiled. And like the ether, it lifts but the winged. Even like the sun is your God's self, it knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks it the holes of the serpent. But your God self dwells not alone in your being. Much in you is still man, and much in you is not yet man. But a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the mist, searching for its own awakening. And of the man in you would I now speak, for it is he, and not your God self, nor the pygmy in the mist, that knows crime and the punishment of crime. Oftentimes have I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong, as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you, and an intruder upon your world. But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest which is in each of you, so the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in you also. And as a single leaf turns not yellow, but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Like a procession, you walk together towards your God's self. You are the way and the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against the stumbling stone. Aye, and he falls for those ahead of him, who though faster and surer of foot, yet removed not the stumbling stone. And this also, though the word lie heavy upon your hearts, the murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder, and the robbed is not blameless in being robbed. The righteous is not innocent of the deeds of the wicked, and the white-handed is not clean in the doings of the felon. Yea, the guilty is oftentimes the victim of the injured, and still more often the condemned is the burden-bearer for the guiltless and unblamed. You cannot separate the just from the unjust, and the good from the wicked, for they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. This is so important because I know that I talk about the idea about justice and injustice, but I know and I understand as a teacher, and what I see in children and what I see in parenting, I have to say that this is deep spiritual truth. That the idea that when we have someone who does wrong in our society, they are oftentimes a product of that society. That what happens is that when an economy forces so much inequality and people are at the very bottom trying to survive, that's when theft happens. That's when a need for theft is caused. Most people will not do something bad just for the heck of it. Most people will do something bad in society because they are a product of their circumstances and they have no choice or they do have a choice, but they choose to go the easier route, basically. So a lot of our criminals that we have in jail today, and a lot of the people that are on trial, they are unfortunately products of society that has separated people into social classes, and it has caused theft and it causes murder, because of the idea that people are kept down and oppressed, so they lash out either in anger, or they form gangs because that is their family, and then they have rivalries of the gangs of who's in control of that territory, because it's a need to feel in control of your life when you don't have control. We are in a society all over the world, it feels like, and I believe that we're starting to awaken from this, where we have people in charge that rule others. But some of the people in charge are actually corrupt themselves. So they bring about this system that is corrupt, and it doesn't service everybody equally. And unfortunately, the people that cause the issues of, the crimes and the murders that happen are people that have taken the quicker route or the easier road in order to deal with those problems that we have in society of inequality, and of corruption. When we have a society that is corrupted from the top, the bottom will be angry and will lash out. And that's why we have a lot of crimes of passion and anger and hate. And when we have a system that is corrupted financially and economically, and they build a unjust economic system, that's when we will have theft, and that's when people will sell dope and sell their bodies, because it's a way of them to survive in an economy that was created already by a corrupted system. We need a change. We need to have people at the top be not corrupted, and to create a system that is righteous and is fair for all and equal. I don't know when that will happen. I am hopeful that all people will have an awakening, and even the leaders at the top will, or we will put leaders at the top who are already there in their higher consciousness, who are looking to service others and not to just service themselves. I do not know when that will be. That's where I can understand where Khalil Gibran is coming from, because the Quran is very, very direct in the idea of law and order, that surrounds crime and the justice. But we are constantly reminded in the Quran, make sure you are righteous in your judgment of others, and to understand where others are coming from that crime. So that is really, really important. And that's what Khalil Gibran is talking about here. So here, and here's a law about the unfaithful wife. Okay, let's see what happens here. If any of you would bring to judgment the unfaithful wife, let him also weigh the heart of her husband to scales, and measure his soul with measurements. And let him who would lash the offender look unto the spirit of the offended. So this is why in the Quran, so Khalil Gibran is giving a spiritual, esoteric interpretation of this idea, very, very deep, using the idea that everything is connected together, we're all from Allah. The Quran talks about the idea that when a wife is unfaithful, or when there is an adulterer in the community, that witnesses need to be involved, and you need to look at that particular situation full of justice and righteousness, in the sense that you better be sure that that person has committed that crime. And here it says that you need, when a woman is put to trial for being unfaithful to her husband and sleeping around, you also need to look at the husband. Was the husband abusive? Was the husband someone that was oppressing her in spirit or in nature, and she had no other way to get out of that situation instead of fall in love with another man? And maybe she wasn't allowed a divorce. You have to look at the core of the situation, not just the offender, but also whoever is bringing that person to trial. You have to look at what are their reasons for doing so. And then here is the idea, and let him who would lash the offender look onto the spirit of the offended. So the person that brings someone to trial and then they are going to be lashed, as the Quran talks about, you also have to look at the person who brought that criminal to see if they are lying and to see what is their heart about. Like, are they just trying to see this person get lashed publicly? So Khalil Gibran is able to see the deeper meaning of the Quran, and yeah, he brings to surface that is what the Quran means about when you judge another, make sure you know that you are being judged for your judgment of another. And it better be true, it better be full of truth, and it better come from a good place in your heart, in order to do good and to be a service to mankind. I mean, if you have a psycho serial killer that's just killing people, of course, you have to put them behind bars. You have to keep them away from society. Or you rehabilitate them and see if you can do that. But unfortunately, sometimes those people are so far gone that they cannot be helped. But I do believe that a big percentage of people in the prison actually can be helped. And I do believe in rehabilitation. Because I believe, when a person does something wrong, and a crime in society, it's not because they wanted to do evil, it's because that was the easier choice, it was the easier route for them to solve their issues that they have been experiencing. It wasn't the right choice. Obviously, if it hurts another, it's not the right choice, but it doesn't mean that person's necessarily evil at the core. There are very few people that would be evil at the core, and you can see who those people are when you look at the massive destruction and chaos that is on earth. When you get to the source of who's causing that mass and destruction and chaos and dividing people and causing these issues and causing these wars, when you look at who those people are, you will know the real evil, who are truly evil, and they have made other people corrupted and turn evil. And if any of you would punish in the name of righteousness and lay the axe onto the evil tree, let him see to its roots. And verily he will find the roots of the good and the bad, the fruitful and the fruitless, all entwined together in the silent heart of the earth. And you judges who would be just, what judgment pronounce you upon him who, though honest in the flesh, yet is a thief in spirit? What penalty lay you upon him who slays in the flesh, yet is himself slain in the spirit? So this is the idea of talking about self-defense, when your spirit is being oppressed and you slay the oppressor. These are different situations that every judge needs to look at in order to judge righteously. And how persecute you him who in action is a deceiver and an oppressor? Yet who also is aggrieved and outraged? And how shall you punish those whose remorse is already greater than their misdeeds? Is not remorse the justice which is administrated by that very law which you would fain serve? Yet you cannot lay remorse upon the innocent, nor lift it from the heart of the guilty. Unbidden shall it call in the night, that men may wake and gaze upon themselves. And you who would understand justice, how shall you unless you look upon all deeds in the fullness of light? Only then shall you know that the erect and the fallen are but one man standing in twilight between the night of his pygmy self and the day of his God self. So his pygmy self is the idea of the Neanderthal, right? The lower consciousness, human being that is only about survival, is only about those reptilian brain instincts of survival and being reactionary. And the God self is the idea of what humans are kind of awakening to, is this higher, will never be God, but the idea of being a human that knows its connection to God, and to be a representation of that light on earth. That is when you are awakening to your God self. It's not that you are becoming God and you want to be worshipped as God. It is anchoring the light of God into yourself as a person, and then being able to share that with others and to be in full service of Allah. And that the cornerstone of the temple is not higher than the lowest stone in its foundation. So, we're all part of this human structure, right? And even though we may have those that are lower consciousness and they do evil acts on earth, or they harm others, to understand that we are all together, though we are all connected as one, and so that the good does not corrupt their own hearts towards the ones that have done evil. What we have saw in the past, and what Khalil Gibran is speaking about here, is taking you back into the ancient times of law and justice. A lot of times it would be a group thought, the group think, basically. You would have masses of crowds throw the criminal or whoever was called to be guilty about a crime in the center of the public arena, and you had people around chanting, "Yeah, kill him, let's hang him." This isn't a time of lawlessness. The Quran came down to show that behavior is unacceptable. We may no longer put someone into the center of people and cause a riot and kind of a mob mentality of groupthink, of killing someone when there is no witnesses, and there's no trial, and there was no chance for the person to explain their actions of why they did this crime. That is supposed to be totally gone and history. Because at that time, that was terrible. There was no justice there. There were just people that were just thirsty for blood, and they just wanted to see someone being punished. That's a lower consciousness. That's not being, you're awakening to your God self and seeing unity consciousness. That is just lower consciousness, and that's almost, it comes from a very dark part of human nature that wants to see other people suffer. So, and they're really angry, but there's no, righteousness in their anger. They just caught someone doing something, but they don't understand. And it brings about the philosophical situation, which is always brought up in ethics, the idea that, you have a story about a man whose mom is dying. He needs medication for her, but doesn't have the money, so he goes to steal it from the store in order to save her life. Is that wrong? That is a very difficult situation to answer, and it's very tough. Only Allah can judge us in that way. I believe that man has a system of law that can judge that, because obviously we're taking from that store owner, and that's his property. But there's another side of law that exists that only God can judge. And that is because God is connected to your consciousness and connected to your heart and understands your intentions behind that certain crime that you did. So to know that we are limited and that we cannot just take it upon ourselves to destroy lives because we feel that it's necessary to do so. We caught them doing an act of crime and then we want to hang them for it. We cannot do that. There is no righteousness in that behavior. And that if we are going to have law, we need to understand that we are limited in our understanding. And we, as much as we can, we need to peer into the intentions behind the crime. And then we can judge righteously about it. All right, I'm going to end there, but I will start the next video with laws. So, salam, and I'll see you soon.